What's going on? Money Morning Live. The day has been going well over here, and I hope the same for you guys. Happy Monday. Right now, we're flipping the script. We're coming on in with Tom Gentile, Power Profit Trades, talking quite a bit about crypto today. Let's bring him in and have a warm welcome in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Good morning, everybody. Tom Gentile here. Welcome to Power Profit Trades. It is Microcurrency Monday, and we're going to call this the post-executive order world of crypto. And we'll talk about what that means in just a moment. So we're going to talk about Bitcoin, Ethereum, some of the smaller altcoins, crypto-related stocks, absolutely. We're going to dig into charts. I want to show you, I thought I would show you something a little different today. I'm going to show you ultra long and short-term charts on crypto and Ethereum. And I want to show you those, Bitcoin and Ethereum, and give you an idea of what I'm looking at. One of the biggest questions I got last week was, what do you determine is a long-term buy and hold? Because, I'm a crypto trader. So how do I get myself out of being a trader and being an investor? And I want to show you something that maybe you haven't seen before that might really excite you about the long term of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and cryptos in general. And of course, got your questions. So we're talking about doing a little Q&A as well. So let's go ahead and get started with our market update. Actually, before I do, Eric, I just got to have a little chat with you. How was your weekend?
The weekend, it's always nice to have a weekend. It's a little time away from the computer, a little time with the family, sports, all that. With 2 young kids, I'm always running crazy on the weekend. How about you? A little bit more relaxing than mine?
I mean, my goodness. My wife and I were talking about it last night. She goes, it felt like a 3-day weekend. The weekend started on Friday, and it didn't stop until Sunday night. It's been a revolving door of people coming and going in the house. It's like this big long weekend where we didn't get anything done. And it's not like I'm looking to do anything on the weekends, but like to have at least one of those days accomplish something.
A little production along the way, right? Even if it's cutting the grass. I don't know. Maybe you don't cut your own grass, Tom.
It was this just, we have everyone's around our kitchen a lot because we've got a fairly decent sized island, and that's where everybody gravitates to. So my wife feels compelled to cook because that's what people around the kitchen table, she just assumes they want to eat. And so, who's showing something on the phone, who's talking about this person, who's talking about that person, typically family. But I noticed, the memes that were going around this weekend all were around gas prices, like these poor Americans, that are complaining about $4 a gallon gas while they're sipping on their $6 cup of coffee.
True. That's true.
or complain about their $4 gas while smoking a pack of $10-15 pack of cigarettes.
It's something like that now, yeah.
I get it. You look at gas prices now, and they are kind of out of control compared to where they were not even 2 years ago. Because if you go back, we're almost at the point where, if you remember 2 years ago, oil was trading at negative prices. Futures contracts were actually, they were paying people in upwards of $20 or $25 a barrel to take these contracts. I'd never seen anything like that before. I thought I'd seen it all. To see
how times have changed.
Negative prices in oil, and now crude oil is topping that $100, $110 a barrel. Last week, 115. So, what a world. The markets are just this continued evolution or continued teaching tool. And we all have to remember, no matter how experienced we are, or even how good we are in some cases, I think you have to always approach the market as a student. And so with that, let's do a little market update. So like I said, I'm going to start right out of the gate with BTC. So any of you that have been trading BTC and you haven't been in Bitcoin for, let's say, more than a year, I want to show you a 5-year chart. I want to then show you about a 1-year chart. And then I want to show you what's been happening the last 50 days. So we're going to look at the same symbol 3 different ways and I want to share with you what's going on. So we'll start with Bitcoin. This is a long-term chart here, guys. I put 999 days on this particular chart. This takes us all the way back to 2019, because what I'm looking for is I'm trying to find that bottom that occurred before we get that new up wave, all right, that institutional phase that we're always talking about here. So prior to March of 2020, Bitcoin was trading in that $10,000 to $14,000 range, and we were getting lower highs and lower lows. So it wasn't like all of a sudden we went from 15,000 and dropped off a cliff down into the threes, all right, which is where we went high threes before we ended up having a closing low at 49.16, all right? It wasn't the case. Bitcoin was already dropping down, all right? We were going into that area where we were seeing lower highs, lower lows. And we saw a little bit of a drift back up as the stock market seemed to be doing really well coming out of 2019 going into 2020. Of course, we know what happened in the first quarter of 2020. Bitcoin fell along with that because everybody wanted dollars. That was it. The dollar was all the rage in March of 2020. But that started the low, which then we started to see that move out. And the big breakout really didn't happen. I mean, you could say that it happened maybe in August, but it really didn't happen until after Election Day, which is, I know for some of you, the weirdest thing, but that's what happened. Election Day, when the reins were turned over to Joe Biden, Bitcoin really started coming into its own, and we jumped above that $14,000, $15,000 range. And I mean, month after month, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, had to move back, moved all the way up into, as we were going into April of last year, a year ago, we were trading above 60,000. Then we saw the massive pullback that took us back down to 729. That's July 29th. That took us back down to below 29,000, which then started to move back up again, which brought us up to that closing high of 67,549, which I talk about all the time. Recent pullbacks have taken us down to the 50% range. That's the 36,232 range on a 1,000-day chart. So the 1,000-day chart really, we're taking us all the way back here. If you took a look at this and split this up, even on an 800-day chart, we'd still see this low that happened, this COVID low. We'd still see the high that happened in November of last year, and we'd see the subsequent pullback. Why does this look healthy? I'm going to answer that question in just a moment, Eric, but I want to show you what the 200-day chart looks like, because once you take yourself into a fifth of that chart, the thing turns around. The 200-day chart shows us starting at a high, working ourselves down to a low, and then kind of gyrating down here in this particular area that we see going on, which is between 35,075 and then this is a 38% retracement, 47,480. Now, we go a step farther. So we've gone from the ultra long term to the long term. Let's go to the short term, which is the 50-day chart. The 50-day chart of Bitcoin looks like this. This is what we've been dealing with the last 50 days. So when I hear people saying to me, why don't you have any buy signals? Okay, because nothing is turning and giving us buy signals, at least in the last week or so. We had some for microcurrency traders. We've had some buying opportunities, but they were about 2 weeks ago. Last week was very quiet. But the great thing about quiet weeks is we're starting to coil up. That's what's happening with Bitcoin, Ethereum, and a lot of the altcoins. We're seeing it's like a spring. When you start to coil a spring up, it gets tighter and tighter. And we are looking for that explosion in price. And we believe the explosion in price because we're getting so much support down here in these mid-30s, that 36,000, 37,000 area. We talked about this 35 to 45 area, and that's true. But that 36 to 37,000 area seems to be a really good area of support where we jump up to 44. All right, 36, 44, 36, 44. Back down. We were below 38 this morning, and now the buyers have come in. Really, just in the last couple of hours, we've seen the buyers coming in again and pushing Bitcoin back above 39. All right, but Again, I started with the long term. I want to end with the long term once again. So back to the 999-day chart. Why does this chart look very interesting to me? Because the last time, you can see this kind of, Eric, I mean, we went from 2019, from 6 of 2019 all the way down to, 9 months later. And then you can add on a few more months. It was a year. We were caught in a downtrend and an uptrend for a year. And then all of a sudden we started to see the breakout. Now, I'm not saying we're going to be stuck in this pattern for a year, because what was going on down here was a much tighter range than what we're seeing right now. What we're seeing right now is we're seeing this, this big $10,000 swing back and forth. So when does it get exciting again? I mean, as a long-term buyer of Bitcoin, I like to time my buys. And yeah, I'd love to get, and you guys all saw me a few weeks ago, put in a pretty decent buy on Bitcoin, and I ended up getting filled around 38,000. Okay, so I'm a little bit above on that particular trade. But as a long-term buyer of Bitcoin, I'm way above my buy-in prices. I'm just adding to that as I see fit. But if I really want to get excited about Bitcoin, we've got to get above this upper end here, right? But I do love the fact that on the long-term scale, we've gone from this low number, COVID, to the high number we saw in November, and we've pulled back, and we've hit that 50% range, 36,232. We've hit it twice. We stabbed through it, ran above it, stabbed through it, ran above it. And this is creating some very good long-term support. The other thing we saw, Eric, big wallets. The big whales have come in on both occasions and have put significant purchases in this area. So are they seeing what we see? That's the $1 million question. Are they seeing the lows, and are they seeing the highs, and are they following the levels of that dead mathematician, Fibonacci, and saying, this is the price that I want to start getting into? And if we drop down to 28, will they come in and buy more? And I'm not saying that we won't drop to 28. I believe that we've seen the lows for the year, but that might not be the case. Time will tell. But where do I really start feeling good about this? Get above 45. I start really feeling good about this. So that's BTC. I thought I would do this one more time with those of you that are Ethereum investors, or Ethereum traders, investors alike. So let's change the game. Let's go from BTC to ETH. All right. So here's ETH. This is Ethereum. And I can see Ethereum's long-term chart. Can you believe that there was a time not too long ago where Ethereum was trading at or just below $100 a coin? Because you go back into that area of COVID, and we were down in the 80, 90, 100 area. We closed that low at 110. But there was a time we were below that during that March, that mid-March area where the market was just getting trounced. Well, guess what? Ethereum, that was happening to Ethereum too. All right, so there's that low. That's that ultra long-term low that we see. Institutional wave coming. And again, it took some time. Here is election day, pretty much right on the chart. We were still below 500, but we were also hitting some resistance back here where we jumped and closed and got above it. And then all of a sudden, now we're off to the races. 500 becomes 1,000. 1,000 becomes 2,000. Pullback. And then 2,000 back again becomes 4,000. And we saw that 4,000 number get pierced in about, I want to say about May of 2021. Big pullback. In fact, that pullback happened really fast. But then we had this period where we had 3 times that they tried to push it lower. It did not happen. And then, of course, here we go once again, up to over $4,800 a coin before getting the snapback. Now, are we going to repeat? Is history going to repeat itself? Are we going to see these 3 areas here where we're seeing support, push to higher highs? Well, that remains to be seen. Once again, I'm going to end on the long-term chart, but let's go to the ultra long. I'm going to end on the ultra long. Let's go to the long-term chart, 200-day moving average, 200-day history. You can see here, same as Bitcoin. We start on the high, 48.10. We work ourselves down to 24.1223. Now, where's Ethereum been since then? We had a lot of basing that happened, right? Jump back above 3,000, jump back below the 24.12 area just for a bit. We were close a week ago. In fact, coming into this morning, we were trading down near 2,500. Since then, catching a few buyers on Ethereum. Look at the 50-day. And what does this remind you of? Reminds me a lot. It looks a lot like the Bitcoin chart that we looked at just a few minutes ago. 2,400 lows, 3,200 high. 2,400 low, not quite, about 3,000 high. Then we start to get this move down. But is this a baseline that's forming, or are we seeing lower highs that could push us lower? That really remains to be seen. But I believe, as I said before, that we are seeing a long-term bottom being put into these coins. And again, one of the first things that we do as traders, I talk about being a long-term owner of Bitcoin and Ethereum and a couple of other coins, but I also am a trader of all things microcurrency. And so part of what we look at when we look at all things microcurrency, do you realize when we look at our watch list, those of you that are microcurrency traders, even those of you who are not, I'm going to let you know that one of the biggest things we do on our watch list, our number one and number two coins on our watch list every single week when we put that list out is Bitcoin and Ethereum, because Bitcoin and Ethereum do help drive the smaller altcoins. And so we like to see those moving in an upward direction because they will eventually become the beta to smaller microcurrencies becoming the alpha. What I mean by that is that if you get a 10% move in Bitcoin, you might see a 20, 30, 40, 50%, maybe 100% move in an altcoin. We've seen it happen before. So we utilize Bitcoin and Ethereum as catalysts. We utilize them as catalysts as one of the first things we look at before determining what altcoins we're looking at buying. All right, so Bitcoin, Ethereum, back to Ethereum one more time. Let's look at that 999-day chart. Ultra long. Again, here we go. Low, high, 50% pullback. Now, what makes this stronger than Bitcoin? Well, because the 50% pullback, we did stab through it once, twice, and now it's holding really well down here at this 2460 level, but the lows have been getting higher, where with Bitcoin, the lows stayed pretty much the same. That tells me that Ethereum, as of right now, still looks like the stronger of the two cryptocurrencies when you look at the big mega caps, all right? So here we go. In summary, I want to see a close on Bitcoin above 45K. I said that last week. I said that a couple weeks ago. I want to see that happen for more than one day. How about Ethereum? I'd like to see a close above 3,000 for more than one day. So 45K is I'm looking for that closing high for multiple days, 3,000 closing high. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen when you see that. When you see Bitcoin above 45,000 and when you see Ethereum above 3,000 for some consecutive days, a couple consecutive days, all of a sudden, we're going to see buys light up like a Christmas tree when it comes to alt currencies, the ones that we trade in our microcurrency trader. So we're definitely not there yet, but that's what I'm looking for. The Biden executive order last week, that was a small piece of what happened last week because all of the eyes have kind of been on what's happening in the Ukraine. But Biden executive order came out, looked like a win for cryptocurrencies, but it was short-lived. It might be months or years before we see regulations. And you know what? In our headlines in a few minutes, we're going to talk about a little bit of that and why it looks like a positive. But, anything that happens in Washington happens on the first gear. What I mean by that is that think about, I got to go back, Eric.
Get back.
The folks in my room right now, most of them know what a 10-speed is. Can you imagine saying that to not even a millennium, but a Gen Y or Gen Z? What's a 10-speed?
You talking about a 10-speed bicycle?
Exactly.
Oh, wow. Yeah, they don't call them that anymore. Yeah, that's
No,
funny.
they don't call them 10 speeds
With
anymore.
the rounded handles in the end, those racing
Yeah,
ones.
that's
Oh,
right.
man. Old
You
school,
know
Tom.
it. But let's talk about the 10 speed for a moment. When you're in the first gear, it's going to take you quite a long time to get where everybody else is going if they're flipping fifth, sixth, seven, eight gears up and they're leaving you in the dust. And that's kind of what happens in DC. DC works in the first gear. We'll talk about why in just a few minutes. But I mean, you know, that's the thing. And the big thing on the table, folks, which is I mean, this is the negative for cryptocurrency. And you can really thank that fourth, the wave, the institutional wave, because institutional waves has for the time being turned cryptocurrencies into a real asset because they were putting it into their portfolio. It's a good thing. It's also a bad thing, right? But inflation is what I'm talking about. Inflation is putting pressure on every asset. And guess what cryptocurrency is right now? For the time being, it's an asset. One of the stories we shared in our microcurrency trader in our debrief last week, Eric, throw that image on the screen.
Yeah, your
We were
mic,
talking about gold,
mic,
crypto. You
yeah,
got it?
CPI, it gold-backed crypto now worth 1 billion, Tom, coming out of the microcurrency trader with Tom Gentile.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's safe to say the Fed and inflation are really the key drivers right now, not only for the stock market, but it's also seeping into the cryptocurrency market too. And, beyond that, I don't really see any earth shattering catalysts that are going to be, help or not for crypto in the short term. And while I'm talking about it, guys, we're going to have live coverage here on the network for the Fed meeting. So there's going to be live coverage during Fed meeting. There's going to be market reaction. Garrett Baldwin's going to be hosting that live event. 8Baller's going to be on there too. That's going to be starting at 1:30 p.m. on Wednesday. So I'm just letting all of you know if you want to see what happens in our reaction to it, then you don't want to miss that. So
Hey,
in the
Tom.
meantime, what
Tom,
we're going to do.
you mind if I jump in quick? Because there was this
Yeah.
question that came in from the chat, which was kind of what we were talking about. I figured maybe we could take this question really quickly before we dive into the crypto news. This one is asking, what's your probability of Bitcoin pulling back this week with witching volatility? Do you have any thoughts on that? Thought it was a good one to grab.
Well, I would say right now, crypto is very highly correlated with the S&P 500. In fact, it's almost like somebody knew to ask that question, Eric. Take a look at the
They may
stock
have.
chart here. So this is a stock chart, and if you've never seen this before, it might look a little bit confusing, but let me help you out here with the big red mouse. So if you take a look at the red and green candles, all right, so the red and green candles are going to be the S&P. This is the SPY. Notice that since the end of the year, so I started this out on December 31st, you can see the lower highs and lower lows that have occurred, and it continued to do so with SPY. Now, look what happened with Bitcoin. Bitcoin dropped really hard, and this was back in January where Bitcoin came down and made that low down there around 33,000. Since then, the lows have gotten higher. So when you think about, I want you to think about triple witching here for a moment, or quadruple witching, quadruple witching. And so that's where we see, again, we're seeing stocks and stock options on ETFs, futures contracts, options on futures contracts. All of these, we're seeing a lot of what we call expiration. These are all closing up this week, and there's going to be a lot of folks who are short that are going to have to buy back their positions. There's going to be a lot of folks that are long that are going to have to sell their positions to close these up. That's what causes the volatility sometimes, and this happens about every 3 months. So think about the third Friday in March, the third Friday in June, the third Friday in September, and the third Friday in December. And that's what causes these, what we now call quadruple witching weeks. So how big of an event is this likely to be for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and cryptocurrency? Well, if you take a look at this chart here, you can see that it hugs the stock market pretty well. But as of the last couple months, Bitcoin's actually been making higher. It has had some lower highs, but it's had higher lows. So Bitcoin has been consolidating really well here on the screen, and Ethereum too. So when you take a look at crypto as a whole, we're actually seeing some buildup pressure happening. I believe that if quadruple witching becomes a net buy to the stock market, Bitcoin's going to blow it out, and we're going to see this thing back in the mid 40s real quick. If the quadruple witching sends the stock market lower, I do not believe Bitcoin and Ethereum are going to make new lows as the stock market would. So in either case, I think it's a bullish event for cryptocurrency. How's that, Eric?
I think you did a fine job there, Tom. Fine job. Would you like to move on to our crypto news segment?
Absolutely. So let's talk about crypto news. And if you've been following my research, guys, in the crypto space, then a big theme for me right now is what I call the adoption phase. I just talked about at the beginning of the show, and we are in the institutional adoption phase. Well, speaking of institutions, this is a different institution. Let's talk about one of our great American institutions, and that's called political lobbying. So Wall Street Journal says that, you got names like Larry Summers, also former chair Mary Jo White. I know that name really well with my days in New York. They are lobbying. Believe it or not, these are government officials and former government officials now lobbying on behalf of crypto traders and crypto investments on Capitol Hill. So, Eric, why don't you show that first and give them a taste of that first image?
I'm going to give a taste right here. Last year's surge in value of digital tokens gave the cryptocurrency industry the money to compete for talent in Washington. The total cryptocurrency market was recently valued around 1.73 trillion, up from 200 billion 2 years ago, according to CoinMarketCap. That's quite the jump there, Tom.
It is. And, Larry Summers, I don't know that name as well as I know Mary Jo White, who Mary Jo White, by the way, she was in the Southern District for some time, if I remember correctly. So she was on the behalf of investors at one case. All right, looking out for the smaller investors. And so for her to make, it's not an about face, but for her to come out and speak on behalf of crypto, I actually think that's very, very bullish, because, what she's doing is she's coming out and saying, well, you know what? I think this is a great opportunity for small and big investors alike. So I think that's fantastic. Now, let's move to the next piece of news that popped up on our radar last week. And that was business adoption. So we talked about political lobbying. Let's talk about mainstream business adoption. So what do you got for us in the area of business?
Yeah, we have this from Nifty Gateway. This is a tweet. It says, thanks to our partnership with @Stripe, we get to empower creators by enabling them to accept credit card payments or card payments from their collectors. So honestly, Tom, I'm not so up to date on what this one's about. So I'm hoping that you could fill us all in, including myself.
Well, I mean, Stripe, the business, they're a credit card processor. There's several of them out there. Stripe is one of them. And obviously, what they do is they get a cut, for execution. They're in the business of making money on execution, as a merchant or with merchants. So they want to bring back support for crypto business, because if they can get into the cryptocurrency area, you see it everywhere. I mean, I'm seeing more and more Bitcoin ATMs coming up. Stripe could take advantage of that processing, but they want to get into the merchant side as well. So that's where we're seeing names like Nifty Gateway saying, "Hey, this is great. We want to partner up with Stripe. What's good for Nifty is good for Stripe as well." And to me, Stripe is kind of saying to themselves, "Well, hey, everyone else in our neck of the woods, the ones that have jumped out on the ledge and saying that we want to partner with Bitcoin, they want to make sure that they consider themselves one of the founders, one of the founding processing payment companies that are doing as well. Yeah, PayPal's already out there. Square's already out there. There's a lot of companies out there. Stripe wants to be, part of that news as well. So finally, here's a headline for everybody that they can wrap their heads around here. It's, when I think of mainstream, it's hard to think of any other investor when you think of mainstream than Kevin O'Leary, right? We all know Kevin O'Leary. Those of you think of him, Mr. Wonderful, Mr. Shark, all right, all over CNBC. He's got his ETF that he's plugging all the time when he's not, telling people he's in or he's out on Shark Tank. He's also he's almost become a commentator on CNBC because he's on so much. This guy must sleep only about an hour or two a day. Anyway, there's a headline out on him. Eric, what do we got on O'Leary?
By the way, he's my favorite shark, by the way. I feel like he's so real all the time. He's straightforward and honest, and I like that.
Yep.
Love that show.
Got a little bit of a personality with him as well.
Oh, of course. And he says, I have millions of dollars. 20% of my portfolio is now in cryptocurrencies and blockchain. That's coming from Kevin O'Leary. And he's an old school guy. He's not a young chicken in here doing this. So that says something, in my opinion.
Yeah, and guys, I want you to take a look at that really now. I want you to take a look at this, and I want you to let your teeth sink in on this steak for a minute. I'm a steak lover, Eric. I know. I don't know if you are, but man,
that's for dinner tonight. Yeah.
We had, so I got to show you the last piece of steak I had. It had been sitting in my freezer for some time, and I was waiting for a special time to get that, was olive Wagyu. And I pulled a piece of olive Wagyu steak out, and it was from Japan. So I'm not even going to tell you how much this cost. But any of you out there, if you go Google olive Wagyu, then you'll see what I'm talking about, that you would save it for a special occasion too. That stuff was like butter in my mouth. Now, when I bit into that, I couldn't just chew and swallow right away. I had to let the flavors get into the mouth and sink into this. I want you to look at this image that Eric put on the screen. I'm going to read it to you again. I have millions of dollars. 20% of my portfolio is now in cryptocurrencies and blockchain. Okay? Now, he didn't say I have 20% of my portfolio in BTC. He didn't say I have 20% of my portfolio in Ethereum. He said cryptocurrencies and blockchain. All right, you know what that says to me? That says to me that he has 20% of his portfolio in cryptocurrencies, but also in cryptocurrency stocks. And I thought what we could do before we get into our chart review, Eric.
Yes, sir.
Let's talk a little bit more about what makes a stock a cryptocurrency stock. And what makes a stock a cryptocurrency stock is if it has anything to do with Bitcoin, Ethereum, or altcoins. So I'm going to share with you the 29 or 30 stocks that I am following right now that are what I like to call cryptocurrency stocks. So what I did was I pulled up my list of stocks. And what I did was I'm going to talk about them as a ranking in a moment. But I thought I'd share these with everybody right now. CME Group. Well, that's a cryptocurrency stock because you know why? Because they are, Chicago Merc. They're a futures exchange, if anything. There are Bitcoin and Ethereum futures that trade through the Merc. Charles Schwab now trades cryptocurrencies. There's CBOE, cryptocurrencies. Microsoft, NVIDIA, AMD, these are all hardware. Microsoft is software, but take a look at these. They're all involved in one way or another with blockchain and or cryptocurrencies. There's NASDAQ. They're also involved in the exchange of cryptocurrencies. We know Tesla has a lot of Bitcoin on its ledger, so it too is in there. But I mean, all of these you see here, MasterCard, Morgan Stanley, Interactive Brokers on the list. MicroStrategy, Michael Saylor has talked about MicroStrategy having thousands of Bitcoin, and he too has a bunch of it personally himself. But then you move to Overstock.com, right? They were literally the first merchant company that I remember, big merchant, way back in the day that said, we're going to take Bitcoin as a form of payment. And that's what really led Bitcoin to move higher back in the 2014 to 2017 area. Overstock.com, you can thank them for that. JP Morgan Chase is in there. Goldman Sachs, Square, Marathon. Riot Blockchain, we know, is tied exclusively to Bitcoin. PayPal Holdings, Intel, Amplify, and Bit Digital are on the list as well. Now there are about another, I think about 7 or so that I look at, but they haven't been on the list for a year. These are the stocks that have been trading, that have options, that have been trading for at least a year. Everything else, like Bido, you might say, where's Bido? Where's all the other ETFs? They're there. It's just they haven't been there for a year. The reason I have these on here for a year, Eric, is because I wanted to rank them by which ones are the strongest right now. So if you're looking for the stronger stocks that are part of the cryptocurrency environment, look at CME Group. This is 1 year. This is a 1-year chart of CME. You can see where it was a year ago. You can see where it is, or this is a 6-month chart, but you can see in the last 6 months where it's been, where it is now. It's on the higher side. You know, if you look at these columns here, I'm going to point these out to you. So this is CME. The high price in the last year was $249.51. The low price was $185.84. And the current price, this was Friday's close, $229.64. So $229.64 is higher to the high price than it is to the low side. In fact, it's 68% of the range. So if we took 185 and we called that 0, Eric, and we took 249 and we called that 100, where we are right now is trading right around 68% between its low and its high. Now, you got Schwab in there at number 2, and then you got CBOE in there at number 3. And CBOE is trading right in the middle. So at 50, it's trading smack dab in the middle of its 1-year low and 1-year high. Everything else, when you get down here at the bottom, I mean, take a look at Bit Digital, new lows for the year. Amplify, this is block, the symbol is block. It's trading 1.48% off the lows. And if I bring a picture up of block, you can see what's happening just in the last 6 months. Yeah, it moved higher when Bitcoin jumped up and made new all-time highs. But that $65, that was long ago as we're trading down here at 30. But take a look at this. This is really interesting, Eric. Bottom, 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 bottom. This thing does not want to go lower. I mean, there's a lot of buyers down here. So even the lowest of the low are telling us that we're really trying hard to put a bottom in. So I wanted to talk about that, bring that Mr. Wonderful quote back up on again, that, you know, he says, I have millions of dollars, 20% of my portfolio is now in cryptocurrencies of blockchain. 20% of his portfolio is spread out in this area, and it includes stocks like these because they are part of cryptocurrency and part of blockchain, even if minor parts. Okay? So at this point, let's go ahead, Eric. Let's jump into a chart review and let's see where our top assets are in the portfolio. You know, I mean, I would love to say, do we have any buy signals worth checking out today? We're going to talk about what's getting close, what's on the watch list at 1 p.m. But it's a quiet, it's kind of a quiet world right now in cryptocurrency. Something's starting to bubble. It's kind of like, you know, we got the pot on, we're stirring the pot. I'm waiting for, you know, the boiling point to happen so that we can start to see some buys. And we're starting to see things really tighten up here. So let's first talk about Kyber.
Let's do it.
Kyber, we talked about Kyber a couple times here. So for a few weeks now, that one's really up solidly from our $1.77 entry that we had last June. All right, great. And so the chart of Kyber, and do you have a chart of that, or do I need to bring that up?
I don't have any charts of that, no. The next stuff I have are the questions that we've grabbed from the chat.
So let's bring up a 200-day chart.
And Tom, I want to be sure, maybe after the chart review, to let people know 1 o'clock what we're going to be doing, where we're going to be, and how they can join us. We need to let everyone know what's up.
We'll definitely talk about that.
Excellent.
But take a look at Kyber. I mean, hey, man, that's the direction that we look for. These are the ones where we have buying opportunities in microcurrency trader, okay? Not all of them are going to do that. Not all of them are going to do that. In fact, we have several that we've purchased, and we have a few we've actually gotten more than one buy into. But we're starting to see that, the twist. The twist is happening. The twist is happening, and what I'm talking about is that we're seeing that coiled spring happening right now. It happened before. I can't guarantee that what happened in the past is going to happen again. All I can do is do what I did in the past to get the results that we had the last time we had that coiled spring that jumped. So there's KNC, and you can see what's happened with it since we put that trade on. It's doing very nicely. Let's see what else we have. Zcash. Okay, so let's take a look at Zcash. And that the symbol for Zcash is ZEC, Z-E-C. Come all the way down to ZEC. And what I want to do is I want to pull that one, and let's take a look at the last 50 days on it. This is Zcash. So you saw the last 50 days when I showed you what was going on with Bitcoin or Ethereum. In fact, let's pair it. Let's turn on the pairing. Let's do an update. There you go. Zcash in the green and red, Bitcoin in black and white. You can see Bitcoin is definitely trading in that range. Zcash is broken out. Zcash, now guys, Zcash is not 62,000. I don't want you to get too excited and say, "Whoa, we got thousands and thousands of times return." No, Zcash, their cost is over here on the left-hand side. All right. So when we look at Zcash, where we were adding, we were trading this since January, and then we added it to a position to this in January. Well, we're above that position. It's actually doing quite well too. All right. So these are a couple of the ones where you can see we're seeing these breakouts. All right. Where did we find these signals? All right. How did we find these signals? I'm going to give you kind of an idea of what we do. Number one, we look at where is Bitcoin and Ethereum trading at relative to anything else that's on our watch list, right? Is it moving lower? Is it moving higher? During the period last week where we had just basically 5 days moving lower, we didn't want to take a buying position at that time because nothing in the microcurrency space was flashing by last week. That's the first thing. The next thing we do is we take a look at where is it in the Fibonacci range? Where is the potential coins on our watch list? Where are they on the Fibonacci chart? And are they making lower lows? We don't want to see anything making new lows. We want to see things that are falling into place. Number three, do we have a currency wave buy, or do we have a darknet buy, or are we getting signals on both at the same time? Okay, so that's what we do. We take that long-term view looking at comparing our coins on our watch list to Bitcoin, coins on our watch list to Ethereum. Then we're looking at what Leonardo Fibonacci has to say about it. And then what does Tom Gentile have to say about it? Looking at our currency waves and looking at our proprietary darknet strategy, which has fared very, very well when we look at these. So that's kind of looking at ZEC, Eric, and then comparing it to Bitcoin.
I like that you're able to do that overlay there, Tom. It's nice that you could directly compare. It gives you a good visual.
Exactly. And then if I want to say, well, how's it look compared to Ethereum? I mean, take a look at this. It was lock and step with Ethereum. Because here's the thing. These coins, the majority of these coins were built off the Ethereum platform. So you might think, a lot of people think, well, Ethereum's going to go up, then the coin's going to go up. Ethereum's going to go down, then the coin's going to go down. Why would I invest in these coins when I can just invest in Ethereum, which is where a lot of these coins were minted? Well, guess what? That's why. Because when you see ZEC go up in the last, say 7 days, and you see Ethereum slide, kind of go up and then back down in the last 7 days, that's why, folks. Because something's going on with this coin that's making it more valuable. More importantly, we saw something going on with it, with our darknet strategy or with our currency wave strategy that gave it a buying opportunity for us right there. All right. How? I'm going to ask the first question right now, Eric.
Let's get into it.
The first question is what, a lot of folks have been asking for the last couple of weeks. How do I get into your 1 p.m.? How do I get into your 1 p.m. Thing where you go through your watch list and you talk about coins that you see that are setting up? And how do I get your recommendations and, what we're doing? Well, folks, to do that, you got to be a member of Microcurrency Trader. Okay. Flash a phone number on the screen, Eric, if it hasn't been put
Oh,
up
it's
there
there.
yet.
Mm-hmm.
And also, you'll see folks in the chat room that will give you links, or you can talk to our VIP team, and they can tell you how you can get the best possible price for this service for 2022. All right. So I asked and answered the first question. What else do you see in the chat Q&A that might be something we could talk about, guys?
I have a bunch for us here, Tom. Let's start out here with this question about Ethereum after Ethereum 2.0. Now, you mentioned that this is something that's been going on for years, but from member numbers say, what happens to Ethereum when Ethereum 2.0 comes out? Is it something to be concerned about? Is it a quick conversion? What's going to happen there?
Yeah, so I could answer that question in probably maybe 60 seconds or 60 minutes. So I think I'm going to go with the 60-second version for Eric, for you, and for the folks that all of you that have been asking that question, because I get that question about once a week. And you know what? For those of you that own Ethereum and you're worried about your Ethereum going to dust and everybody moving to 2.0, not going to happen. Okay. So first of all, what is Ethereum 2.0? It's just a name to the update that is going to basically take Ethereum and allow it to have much, much greater transactions per second. Okay. And it's also going to be a way of boosting security as well. And so, again, I could get into white pages on this, and we could just have a nice reading session, fireside chat, smoke a cigar, have the Labrador Retriever sitting next to me, but I'm not going to do that. I will say this. When this is supposed to occur sometime this year, whether or not that happens, there's still a couple of more, like verifications that have to happen. A lot of people are concerned about, we had the London hard fork. That was the last upgrade in the network that I know of. There's got to be other upgrades to this network and to blockchain before, they started switching from proof of work to proof of stake. I could say all kinds of stuff like that and boggle your minds. But I just want to say this. You can't invest in 2.0 until the upgrades are done. But keep in mind, if you're in Ethereum, you're in 2.0 because of 2.0. Once it comes out, Ethereum in 2.0 is supposed to trade at the exact same prices as you can then take your Ethereum and register it and change it over to 2.0. So what's good for 2.0 is going to be good for original, good for the OG. All right. Does that answer the question, Eric, in your mind?
Yes.
Without me going into white page dialogue?
We don't want white page dialogue is not exciting, Tom. It's long, drawn out. It's very informative, but that's something someone would do on their own time. Now, before I get to the next question, I want to let everyone know that we're not only taking questions that we have from previous shows, but I'm looking at the chat, grabbing some from there as well, which brings us to our next question right here from THL. I've seen several news stories about name brand companies beginning to look at advertising in the metaverse. We know the metaverse is a kind of big thing right now. What I'm not understanding is how would that impact tokens such as Sand and Mana? Would this put upwards pressure on their prices?
Absolutely. Not only Sand, not only Mana, but cryptocurrency as a whole. Here's the thing. In almost every circumstance, I kind of said this last week, think of the Kardashians for a moment. Let's get out of cryptocurrency and let's get into their metaverse, okay? Whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, almost every advertisement or every tweet, social tweet, etc., any kind of news when it comes to the Kardashians is always going to end up being good news for their back pocket. Now, think about cryptocurrency for a moment. Not every piece of news, but most news in cryptocurrency, what it does is it attracts one more person who did not know that Bitcoin exists and it did not know that they could be part of Bitcoin. And I do think that, there's the investing public. There's going to be the investing public, and there's going to be people that do not invest in cryptocurrency. Just like there are people that invest in the stock market, and then there are people who don't, because they'd rather spend their money on sneakers and on sweatshirts and hats and self-gratification things that are going to make their lives a little bit better for the moment. Okay, we've all been there and done that. I did. Okay, but there will, and we will get people that go from that space to the investing trading space. The great thing about cryptocurrency is that not only will we see more people come over every day to invest in it, but as we see advertising and we see, advertising in the metaverse, I want you to also think about this. People who go in the metaverse, they're going to spend money in the metaverse. If the metaverse, in my mind, is kind of a fake life, that's what I call it. Isn't that what you
second
call
life?
it?
It's like a second life, your life on another level.
Yeah, an alternative life, a digital life.
Right.
It reminds me of that movie, that Steven Spielberg movie. What was it? Player One? Was it Ready Player One?
Oh yeah, you jumped inside of the game, and yeah.
That's pretty much, you take a look at that, and that's pretty much where we're kind of going with the metaverse. People can go in and become a filtered version of themselves, and they go dance in the club, and then they go down to the gas station, they buy a car, they buy a house, they have all this stuff, and they have a job. People have a job in the metaverse. They literally are transitioning themselves from reality to an alternative reality that is better than their own reality. I mean, think about it. Who would take a reality and go into something that's worse than their reality? I certainly wouldn't. Would you, Eric?
That sounds awful, and I would definitely not pay to go play a worse life than my actual life. Not that it's bad.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and so
of course not.
When you think about this a little bit more, THL brings up a really good question, because when you think about this a little bit more, what kind of money do you think is going to be spent in the virtual reality? It's going to be cryptocurrency, because the alternative currency could go with the alternative lifestyle. And so advertising in the metaverse, not only advertising in the metaverse, but there's going to be ways of being able to buy things in the metaverse. And there's going to be the offer, if not already in some cases, to utilize Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other forms of cryptocurrency. So I think that puts upward pressure and positive advertisement in the crypto space.
Thanks, Tom. Well, first of all, do you have anything from YouTube that you want to pull in, or should we move on over here? We don't want to forget the audience.
Yeah, you know what? I'm looking at my YouTube channel right now. It's the morning, and Nomadic says good morning to you, Eric, as well as me. But here's one that I completely forgot about. Biggest news story of the weekend. Are you ready?
I'm ready. What is it? Oh, yeah. Mr. Brady's back.
He's back.
Yeah. So how does that happen? I was talking about it earlier today. He retires. Is that a play just to get paid more to come back, or did he just miss the game?
I don't know. I'll tell you what, though. This could even be his wife. And I'm not saying it was her decision, but did you see all the news that came out afterwards? His wife said it's either me or it's the NFL. And that doesn't sound like, when you look at, how excited she was in the games in the Super Bowl, especially I was at, during my long 3-day weekend, I was up at one of the sports bars in town, and they had all the games on and the music. Somehow I ended up sitting right next to the band, and my ears were just thumping from the drums, because it was heavy metal night. And heavy metal, country, they were doing all kinds of stuff. But I'm plugging my ears, but I'm looking at the screens, and I see the old Super Bowl where the Falcons were playing the Patriots, and Brady took the Patriots from an absolute no way they were going to win this game, and Atlanta was already celebrating late in the third quarter, and then the Patriots marched back and just did the impossible, and you could see his wife and his family jumping up down, really excited. And, of course, she was not excited at the last Super Bowl because they didn't win. So I don't think it was at all it's me or the NFL thing. I think those two support each other. And I think part of that was she probably said, you know what, you're not done with this yet. Go out and do another year, and then let's talk. Let's move on to life after.
So
I
more
also
like the
think,
wife support, right?
yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
also think he might have took a look at ESPN and some of the other guys in the booth, and he's like, man, I'm not ready to do this yet.
Could be,
I can
could
still
be.
outplay most of the guys on the field. Why would I want to be up in the in the booth talking about people that I'm better than right now? And so,
It's true.
that being said, so that was that was quickly on but hey, anything else before we finish up this hour?
Well, I have some more questions here. I got a few more, so we have a little bit to touch on. When to invest versus when to trade from Twisted Logic, aka Amy. Question, Tom, how do you determine which cryptocurrencies to invest in, not trade? Thank you.
Yeah, biggest market cap. I want to look at the absolute biggest market cap, and where are they? They're in Bitcoin, they're in Ethereum, they're in a few others. If you took a look at, for instance, something like coinmarketcap.com, you can see by ranking by CoinMarketCap what flows to the top. That doesn't mean I'm going to jump into it. It just means those are the ones I want to look at for investments. Those top 5, top 10 are where I tend to gravitate to.
All right. Now, do you want to get into your top stocks for the day? Your Monday?
Well, I mean, we're at the end. We're at the end of the session right now. So,
Yes, we are.
if I were to go back, I mean, I take a look at this high-low ranker, and I see to myself, if I were going to be playing cryptocurrency in the stock market and looking for a move, and I wanted to buy strength. Strength is in CME, strength is in Schwab, maybe CBOE. Those are where the strength is right now. If I wanted to be an aggressive trader, Eric, and I were looking at the stock market, I'd be down here looking at Intel, Amplify, and BIT. That's INTC, BLOK, and BTBT, because those have they're down there near the bottom. They're at 98% of their high low. What I mean by that is they're 2% off the bottom. These are bottom feeders, but they could be very interesting bottom feeders, especially if we are seeing that upward pressure that we're starting to see happening with Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc. And of course, a lot of you are probably saying, "Hey, do you have a cryptocurrency that we could trade today? Is there anything out there in the world of crypto?" Well, there isn't right now. Okay, if those of you that are members of Microcurrency, you already know we've been kind of quiet this week. Or last week. We've been quiet last week. We've been patiently waiting. We're waiting for something to give us liftoff. If I were to look right now, Eric, and I were to jump into my Microcurrency app, and let me find it real quick, because, I got a lot of apps. But when I look at the Microcurrency Trader app, there's some stuff that's starting to look rather interesting. I could put it on the screen for you, but that's just a first glance. See all that green? Those are some areas we're going to be looking to for further confirmation. I'm going to do that at 1 o'clock, guys. So those of you that are part of our Microcurrency service or a premium member, join me in a half an hour, and we'll jump in and we'll look at these further. We'll look at a deeper dive into crypto. We'll look at the watch list. And for everybody else, I'll see you same time back here again tomorrow. We will jump into the last bit of earnings if there's anything left, and there is. There's some stuff I'm looking at here for the last couple weeks. By the way, I got another Rivian type opportunity. You guys remember Rivian? Remember what we did? Got another one. And guess what? It's even cheaper. So I'll see all of you again tomorrow, 11:30. Bye, everyone.